Hello everybody, my name is Voxel Session, and welcome back to another TF2 video. TF2 has many different status effects, some of them being positive, and some of them being negative. Today, I'd like to take a look at all of them, explain what they are, and figure out which class can inflict the most. So, first of all, probably the most well-known effect is the Ubercharge. Ubercharge can only be granted by the stock minigun, and grant invulnerability for 8 whole seconds. But there is another class that can become invulnerable. The Scout, when he takes a swig of his bonk atomic punch, he becomes invulnerable. Another status effect granted by an Ubercharge is the Quick Fix's Ubercharge, which is called Mega Heal. It also lasts for 8 seconds, I believe, and it can only be inflicted by the Quick Fix. It makes you immune to slowness, and it grants healing at triple the normal rate of the Quick Fix. Next up is the Crit Boost, which is provided by a lot more items. First of all is the Crit Screed, which grants 100% crits on all weapons for 8 seconds. For heavy, we have the Killing Gloves of Boxing, which grant 100% crits for a couple seconds on a kill. Doesn't only apply to the gloves, it applies to all of his weapons. Spy has the Diamond Back, which grants him 1 crit for every backstab he lands. Does only apply to the Diamond Back. He also gains crits for every building he stabs. Check this out. Switch to stock. 1, 2, 3. Switch back to the Diamond Back. And I have my crits. The next thing for crit boosts is the Charge and Targe, which does crit boost you late in the charge. This also works with the Splendid Screen, and another great one is Pyro with the Flog. Grants 100% crits, and you get invulnerability during the taunt. Moving on to our next buff, we've got another soda, the Criticola, which yes, does give you a mini crit boost, which is what we will be looking at next. Mini crits always make you do 1.35 times the damage that you normally would have done, as opposed to a full crits 3 times damage, making crits way better than mini crits. Soldier's buff banner grants him a mini crit boost, and all nearby allies. Returning to the Demo Man, all of his shields grant him a melee mini crit boost. That was a random crit. See? Mini crit. Unlike the crit boost, the Tide Turner can also give him a mini crit boost. It's my channel logo. Wow. Returning to the Heavy, also, for melee only mini crits, the Buffalo Steak Sandwich, which grants 100% mini crits, but it does force you to only use your melee. And now we've got a very popular sniper secondary that makes his enemies take mini crits, the Cleaner's Carbine. Once it's full, it grants 100% mini crits on all weapons. This means it pairs very nicely with the Bushwhacker that always crits instead of mini crits. If you're using that, you can consider this a bit of a crit boost. Par exemple, boost, Bushwhacker. Boom, 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 boom. Moving back to the medic for a second, we have another status effect that we need to look at. See those little particles above his head coming off of him? That means he's overhealed, which is somewhat of a status effect. So, of course, this can be given to all teammates with every single medic secondary. It's half as potent when you're using the Quick Fix. Now, I'm not going to say that the head taking is considered overheal, but if you are at the maximum amount of heads, and then you get a kill, I do get a very small amount of overheal for a short amount of time. On top of that, he also has the Half Zatuichi, which heals him for 100 health, which will put him at his maximum overheal once he gets a kill, if he is at full health. Also applies to the Soldier, which is very nice indeed. Next up, we have the Spy with his Converse Kunai, which can bring up to 210 health. This is because overheal is capped at 3 times your base health, and because your base health is 70 when you are using the Converse Kunai, it is capped at 210. It's interesting that all other overheal is capped at 150% instead of 300%. Moving along to another one-off, we have got the Scout's Hype. When activated, turns your weapon purple, and you get 5 extra mid-air jumps. Now you see them, now you don't. Next up, we have the Speed Boost. And no, I'm not talking about anything that increases your speed. That video you can watch up here in the top right. I'm talking about, you know, the wind particles and your boosted movement speed. This can be inflicted and received to the soldier through his disciplinary action, as well as inflicted and received with the Conqueror. The Spy has two things which give him the speed boost, those being the Big Earner, as well as the Dead Ringer. You just can't see the particles because that would be a dead giveaway. Next up, we got the Eviction Notice, which give Heavy the speed boost every time he hits an enemy. And finally, we've got the Pyro, with the Extinguisher, gives them the speed boost. This only applies on an extinguished kill. Now, the Hot Hand also exists, which is very similar to the Eviction Notice in that it gives you a short speed boost every time you hit an enemy. This is a weird weapon. Since I did reach 500 subscribers, I now have channel memberships, so for only $3 a month, you can be a member. You will get a unique role on my Discord server, and you will get access to some very special videos. Moving on, we have Damage Softening. Yeah, some of these effects have weird names. Damage Softening is like a reverse buff banner. It's for the battalion's backup. It makes you take 35% less damage. So if I do hurt me 100, I don't take 100 damage. I, in fact, take 65 damage. It reduces incoming sentry damage by 50%, which doesn't stack with the 35% resistance that it normally provides. And this also applies to all nearby teammates as well. Next up, we have whatever the Vaccinator, the resistance effect. You have bullet resistance, explosion resistance, and fire resistance, which all block 100% of crit damage of that damage type, and just 75% of all damage from that damage type. And then we have another unique effect, which is called the Heal Ring, which looks a lot like the Quick Fix's Uber, but it's different. It's very different. It works in an aura around the medic, and it heals all your teammates around you. That's all the points for buffs. Now, let's take a look at the debuffs. Probably one of the most common debuffs you'll see is Fire, which can be inflicted by all of Pyro's primaries, all of his flare guns, and the Sharpened Volcano Fragment, and the Gas Passer, and you get the deal. Pyro is just the fire guy. But there are other weapons that can set people on fire, such as the Hulong Heater, which does 12 damage for every puff, and then 4 damage for every tick of afterburn. It's not just the Heavy and the Pyro who get all the fun, because Soldier, his alt fire, also inflicts afterburn. Now we get to bleeding. Seems like a really common thing, but only 2 classes can inflict it. But it's just that one of the classes can inflict it in a lot of ways. Those 3 weapons being the Flying Guillotine, the Rap Assassin, the Boston Basher, which can also be inflicted to himself. So everyone can share in the bleeding. Good times for all. The other class being the Sniper, and the Travelman's Shiv is my favorite sniper melee, just because that bleed damage is very nice. Still does 100 on crit too, so you're not missing out on much. Moving on, we have Slowness, which is inflicted by the Sandman, and more the farther away you are. Pretty effective. And a weapon that is almost never used is the Natasha, which slows enemies down more the closer you are to them, and less the farther away. The problem is it just does less damage. The slowness effect is really annoying, and it can also be bypassed by just strafing. Yeah, pretty useless. Next up is Jurati, which is kind of like a pseudo mini crit boost. It is inflicted by 2 things and 2 things only. Both of them are snipers. First of all, we have the Sydney Sleeper, and of course there's Jurati, which lasts for about 12 seconds from my counting. Of course, all damage taken while Jurati will mini crit. Next up, we have the very aptly named Mad Milk effect. Can you guess what weapon inflicts the Mad Milk effect? That's right, the Mad Milk. When players are inflicted with the Mad Milk, all damage done to them will heal the attacker for 60% of the damage done, which isn't as much of a debuff on that person as it is a buff for the person attacking them, which in a way is a debuff for that person because they're helping the person that's attacking them. Then we have the Marked for Death effect, which is kind of just Jurati, but more often than not, it's forced onto yourself. So we've got the Critical, which every time you attack, you are marked for death, represented by the skull. So all damage taken will mini crit on you. Deal mini crits, take mini crits. To show marked for death, we have the Fan of War, which will mark one person for death for 15 seconds, or until you decide to mark someone else for death. Then we have the Soldier's Escape Plan, which at the cost of marking you for death, but it does augment your rapidity. And then last but least, we have the Gas Passer. Wow, finally charged. Okay, throw it on someone. Now they are covered in this icky, sticky gas. Any damage they take lights them on fire. Now this weapon doesn't usually light people on fire. It's just, I happen to get random crits. So let's see if I... There, you're on fire now. And this also applies to teammates who will also set people on fire. So I mean, technically, all classes can set people on fire. But it's just that they have to have another debuff already, which is provided only by the Pyro. So really, it's still just Pyro. Then you tally it all up for the score, who can give themselves and their teammates the most buffs, and who can give their enemies the most debuffs. Wow. Good job to whoever won that. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. You know, let me know if I forgot anything. Thank you guys so much for 600 subscribers. I think I'm at 600 subscribers. I don't know. Go check. If I'm not, subscribe. If I am, subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.